Hi, this is Ben, and welcome to another episode of Competent Conquest. This week, it is Bryan and I, and we're playing with the 2,000 point pre-constructed starters that Parabellum put out. I'm playing the Pursuit of Aghm starter with mostly, I'm running it as Ardent, so I've got Kerawegh as my Warlord, and my Hellbringer Drake token, because I don't have one yet for Ironclad, is just pretending to be an Ironclad today. He's playing the Spires starter, and he decided to go Under Spires, which with a big block of Force-Grown Drones, which we've seen do very well in the past. And I think this is a fun one. We're going to talk a lot about how to build these lists. Hopefully later this week I will be able to get time to record a video discussing like how I built this and how I would like build onto it to sort of help new players, while still like the purpose of this channel is to try to talk about good positioning, how to play scenarios, and how to play things well. It's not necessarily about the list, it's more about the game. So without further ado, I'm starting with my Ardent Kerawegh and my Flame Berserkers, and he has his Force-Grown Drones and Biomancer on turn 1. So we're speeding through a little bit here. Gotta like sort out his stuff. I lost the roll to go first, which is winning on turn 1, so I flipped Kerawegh, he flipped Biomancer, and then he's just gonna have to bring. So I flip Kerawegh, he flips Biomancer, and then he brings on Force-Grown Drones. Building a stack isn't really hugely relevant here. He's just gonna go and try and get into his large zone. That makes sense. In this scenario, that's kind of what you want to do. You just want to stop people from scoring. He figures he can pressure this side of the board and really kind of prevent me from swinging the flank and going over. I end up like my plan here is to try to score 2 zones for as long as possible. He has 3 heavies in his list, but I have a big block of Dragon Slayers, and I have my Ironclad. And the Ironclad is going to give me rerolls for my command stands and my characters, if I position it as well as I can. And with my command stands getting extra attacks due to my Ardent Kerawegh's Supremacy ability, like I get a lot of value out of that. So I'm mostly trying to keep my heavies back and trying to just outlast as long as I can. I throw the Kerawegh up on the opposite side of the Force-Grown Drones, because honestly it wants nothing to do with Aura of Death for Force-Grown Drones. And I really just want to get it into a zone early and just kind of sit there and score. I get pretty lucky here. I get 2 of my heavies in, or 2 of my mediums in. So I bring in my Fireforged with a Sorcerer and my 2 units of Wardens. I know that I want to get Wardens into Force-Grown Drones. I also want to use my Fireforged to shoot the marker twice and let the Wardens kill the marker. So I'm going to be able to get my 3 victory points early, get into the zone on this side, and then run the other Wardens up the far flank. The reason for running them around the building is that if those Force-Grown Drones want to threaten pushing me out of my zone so that he can safely guard his zone up here, I really don't want that to happen. So I need to make sure that I maintain control over this. So my plan is to bring Wardens along here and Wardens here, and that way if he goes in to threaten this zone, they'll be able to pincer. And Wardens just do ludicrous damage to Force-Grown Drones. These Wardens have 21 attacks, and if they're in the flank of Force-Grown Drones, they're just doing true damage, because Defense 1 doesn't get saves against Cleave 1. And that's just... And if I can charge them in and get that damage in before I get hit by Aura of Death, I can likely take very little to no Aura of Death from the Force-Grown Drone unit. He gets 1 of his mediums in. That's normal. So he brings in his Brute Drones with Pheromancer, and he brings in Avatara with his Lineage Highborne, with his successful roll. And then we roll off, and I believe I roll another 6 here. I rolled a lot of 6s for priority of this game, which I think is probably ideal. It certainly is in the early turns, though, because I want him to commit first. So I was getting actually pretty lucky with the early supremacy rolls. So he wants to keep his Pheromancer. His Pheromancer is his Warlord, and it gives a 12-inch aura of reroll resolves. So he wants to keep it centralized, and then it also has impact attacks and is able to like clean up a marker relatively quickly. So that's really his plan, is to try to clean up this marker as quickly as possible. His goal here is to have it so that only one of those stands is in the forest. It's pretty close, but he definitely wants impact attacks going into the marker, so we're good with that. Like I said, I just move up here. I just want to get in this zone and protect it. I don't want to lose my zone. And I just want to start scoring points. If I can get any sort of early victory point lead against the Spires player, that actually gives me a pretty significant advantage. I do think he made a mistake here, just on the first turn. Because the Force-Grown Drones don't score, because they have a light character in them. And 14 inches is enough to get Avatara into this large zone. I think he should have flipped his deployment and run the Force-Growns up the other side, so that the Avatara could run in and just tiptoe into this zone. It's not a huge deal, but it does help me out a lot here. And I mean, I would have flipped my deployment. Like, I would have done exactly the same basic plan, just flip sided. But we would have score parity on 2, instead of me getting a slight edge. So right now he's measuring for his Pheromancies and for his Pheromantic Burst. And he doesn't have range for Burst, which is a little funny, but it's not that big of a deal. Like, it's not like those guys really need the extra movement this turn. They don't move their full 11. They definitely didn't need 13. He doesn't want to hard commit them this early in the game. I bring Wardens on. Like I said, my plan earlier was to get these guys up along this edge, and they just run on 12. And my plan is just to wheel them around the house and just try to get them threatening the flank over there. I don't want the Force-Grown Drones to be able to deny me my zone. Like, I need my zones. So it's his turn here, and I think he's I don't remember what he's doing here. I think he's trying to measure. I did that before he finished his Pheromancy. He just gave Tenacious to the Force-Grown Drones. I played slightly out of order there because I thought he was done. My other Wardens here, I think about just running them straight at the zone, and then I'm like, no, wait, I need them to shoot this marker, and then I realize that I actually need to set up so that the Fireforged will be able to double march on this turn and then march shoot the marker. So that's what I'm measuring here now. And I move my Wardens over a little bit so that I can move my Fireforged over, so that I'll have at least 1 stand. I managed to set it up so that I get 2 stands. The Sorcerer will be within 8 inches, and the regular stand will be within 7, so that they'll be able to actually damage the marker. I hope that 5 shots with AP2 is enough to do 1 wound to a marker with each activation. And if not, then, I get 5 shots with the Sorcerer with no AP. So, yeah, these guys want to go exactly next to these Wardens, so that they will be able to march forward and shoot. Just trying to get whatever damage I can, make sure I get that damage on the marker as quickly as possible. You need to get you need to get the markers out of there, and these two walls that you can see in the center of the board are hindering terrain, and that makes it very difficult to be aggressive. Those Avatara move a little far. I measure this out to like his front corner, and so we walk it back a little bit. It's not a huge deal. So it's like here's 13, and then wheel an inch so that he can kind of set it up. The real goal here is that if I'm like march charged those Avatara to keep him off the zone, he would be able to charge me with the brute drones in the flank, and that's really what he was trying to set up there. Here, he moves his Force-Grown drones up enough that I can't double march Fireforge next turn and get any damage on him. He just wants to be out of range of that, and like that's a smart play. So, end of the turn, I'm going to score 2. I'm not in range to threaten him, and my plan was to shoot the marker anyway, and I didn't really care that he stayed out of range. Gives me more time. So both my heavies come in. My Hold Ray has Tactical 3, so he has flank. And I managed to roll both of my mediums, so both initiates come in as well. He gets one of his 2 heavies, so he brings on his Siegebreaker Behemoth, and he fails 2 of his mediums here. So his Onslaught Drones are just hanging out until later. But he brings Siegebreaker Behemoth and Incarnate Sentinels, I believe. Yep. And his last Avatara come in. So right now, I'm ahead on victory points. I'm going to get 2 zones this turn. If he march charges my Fireforged, I charge him with Wardens. So I want my Wardens to go very late in this turn. Just to kind of threaten that. And if he doesn't march charge my Fireforged, my Flame Berserkers, which I would expect him to not march charge them, then he probably just moves up and takes his zone, and I'm ahead on scoring. So I'm ahead on scoring, and I have shooting. I don't really have any good reason to rush him. Though on my Supremacy turn, I do make a charge into those Avatara, expecting a lot more work out of my Wardens than I get. I was really expecting to be able to break him, and I wasn't accounting for... I make a mistake in a later turn here where I'm not accounting for the hindering. I thought I was, like, I don't know what I was thinking, honestly. I was just expecting to roll better, and there was no reason to expect that. I think I actually had a plan, and then I did it wrong, because I'm trying to remember what I did. But what I wanted to do, the correct thing for me to do, was to set it up so that my Kerawegh went to cast Always Inspired on my Wardens and have them charge through the hindering terrain, so that they gained an advantage over the Avatara, who wouldn't want to charge them through hindering because these are not Superior Creations Avatara. Clash 2 is not exciting. And if I had successfully done that with the Kerawegh, then I would have been able to more aggressively threaten him. So I just bring initiates on. The whole plan of these initiates is to follow the Flame Berserkers into the zone and be additional scoring stands. I can't, I need to have more scoring, more stands and more scoring stands in the zone than him in order to score it. And I don't want him to be able to continuously push up that line and then tippy-toe in with one stand and prevent me from scoring. So I bring in both my initiates on this side. They're relatively good defensively. I figure this second unit of initiates, if he does run anything on this side of the board, down past his house there, I'll be able to stand right in front of the water and take off at least one of his clash. So we realize he has to charge this way, because if he charges the other way, then a second stand will definitely clip the terrain. But whatever. So it tries to snap onto the objective marker, which is everybody's favorite thing. it is theoretically possible for him to fail these impact attacks. He does roll 3 too few. They are impact 3, guys. But he does his wound there, and then he clashes, and it's going to take a wound from the clash. So Kerawegh goes, and he targets the Flame Berserkers to give them always inspired in case, I don't know, something happens. It goes off. Siegebreaker comes on. So he brings on the Siegebreaker. This is a good play. He brings Siegebreaker on to threaten the Wardens on this other flank, and that's a good counter to Wardens. They don't love fighting Siegebreaker. So, but it does put the Siegebreaker into Fireforged, which isn't exactly ideal either. So I moved my Flame Berserkers up here, and I really shouldn't have done this. Like, they should have just honestly straightened out so it was slightly easier for the Initiates to get into the zone next turn. Just so I could make sure all 3 Initiates were in, and then probably just reform to move Kerawegh over. Yeah, and I moved them back a little bit. I figured that out. They didn't need to move. They were in a good spot. I have the advantage. He has to come to me. There's no reason for me to, I can be patient. And I still was. I'm outside of charge range of those Avatara. So I'm pushing my lines forward a little, but I really didn't gain anything by them moving forward. And normally I like having units angled, but in this case, it actually would have been a little better for them to be straight so that my Initiates could march past them. Because I'd much rather have Initiates tank a charge and then, follow them up with Flame Berserkers afterwards. So yeah, Warden's moving up here. I have to finagle this a little bit. I'm trying to make sure that I can turn. I want to turn as much as possible to get around the building. I probably should have just marched 6 and then reformed. But I get a little bit more space by doing multiple wheels here. This was a mistake. My Ironclad Drake should not have been at this point in my stack. So I screwed. Well, that was actually fine, but I was supposed to charge with these middle Wardens to attack the marker, so that the Hellbringer could move up his full 14 behind where the Wardens were. And I moved the Wardens on the flank, forgetting what my plan was. I thought I had both Wardens in the stack, back to back, and I just didn't. So that was neat. Yeah, we're just measuring out where the Fireforged can go, because he doesn't want to go into range of the Fireforged if he can avoid it. Shooting Force-Grown Drones is not exciting. I'm going to march up and shoot the marker. I want to kill the marker. My Holdray goes. He's not on the table. His Avatara go. I believe he just brings them up behind his Force-Grown Drones here. He considers putting them up on this flank. He doesn't end up doing this. I understand this play. It threatens the Wardens, which is good, but they're kind of out of the game then, and then my Wardens can just kind of sit there and play chicken with a Behemoth and an Avatara, and he does really need to get something into that zone. I think he was a little bit cautious with the Force-Grown Drones here and probably should just aggressively run them at the zones. Just get them on. Just run them past the zone so that those Avatara can run on and score. He's actually getting jammed up by his own unit here, and it helps me get ahead on points, and I should have leveraged it better than I do in this game. So we have a 6-inch zone that places 15 inches off the board. So 15 inches, or that places 18 inches up the board. So 15 inches is mathematically exactly in the zone. And so my Fireforged are going to walk 5 and be in the zone and then shoot at the marker. And that was important. Otherwise, I would have probably, like I said earlier, both of us probably should have swapped the sides of our deployment so that his Force-Grown Drones could be a little more aggressive, but I am mathematically just exactly touching that zone, and I can see the marker, and 2 hits. He almost rolled double ones, but he didn't, so the marker takes the damage. I have Tempered Sorcerer. I don't have anything I can do with it except, like, cast a Fireball on some Force... Oh, I'm not even enraged. Fireball, Force Drones. So I bring my Dragon Slayers up behind the Fireforged here. I actually do make a mistake. I should have run my Fireforged much earlier on the following turn. Or my Dragon Slayers, just to get them... They end up getting stuck behind my Fireforged a little bit, and I should have just, like, marched them. I should have just been like, okay, Dragon Slayers, let's get in the game. Just run them past the Fireforged, have them sit wholesale on that marker, and then there's a Siegebreaker that can try to deal with them, but Siegebreaker does not want to get attacked by Dragon Slayers. And the Force-Grown Drones can March Charge the Dragon Slayers, but then they get flank charged by the Wardens. My Fireforge can shoot the marker they're on. They can shoot the Siegebreaker if it charges in. They can shoot over the Dragon Slayers, so they really love... Like, they're actually quite happy sitting just right behind Dragon Slayers. So I did misplay that. I was trying to be, like, too defensive with the Dragon Slayers, and there's not really a good reason to do that. I obviously didn't want to take a bunch of Aura of Death on them, but they can take it, so... So now we're going into turn 4. He gets his Centaur Avatara because he got one of his mediums or one of his heavies last turn, and his Onslaught Drones come in automatically because it's turn 4. So we're both going to be all in, and we're building decks, and we're going to fast forward here a little bit. Oops, I went too far. So I go with Fireforged first, or he goes with a Pheromancer first. I go with Fireforged first, and I just take a shot. I shoot the marker down. I want to free up my Wardens. And he tries really hard to save here. But this was, like I said, this was a mistake. I should have had Dragon Slayers there and just been like, all right, we're just going to move Dragon Slayers into the zone. I do measure this correctly so that Dragon Slayers can move past the Fireforged. But this just gives him the ability to gum up my works by March charging my Fireforged. And I didn't need to do it. I didn't need to go further forward. I didn't need to create a situation where things could go bad for me. And this is something I do to people all the time. So it's really, I really should have, like, seen it. He brings some Onslaught Drones on. Like, Onslaughts are great. They're very good zone holders, and they are just extremely efficient attackers for their points. For 120 with Burnout, you're going to get 15 attacks hitting on 4s. Like, they're a great unit, and they grind through things pretty quickly. They die to everything. Like, you are not paying for defense, but much like Raiders, they're just a very efficient, like, pure offense trading unit. My initiates just move up, they get in the zone. I actually make a misplay with these initiates. I should have figured out where the other ones were going. So that I could make sure... Yeah, so my plan was to go just in line here, because if the back of your unit is touching the front of that, then these guys would wheel straight sideways and be able to hit the flank. But I don't want my initiates in the water, so that was an error. It's not a huge deal, because I have support, so like 1 to 2 stands just not being in the zone is actually just fine. Or, you know, having to make supporting attacks is not a huge deal. But it might have... There was a point at which those Incarnate Sentinels survived on like 1 or 2 wounds, and those extra couple attacks might have done that. So... it worked out. It was okay, but it was a little frustrated. It was a mistake. Like, these initiates could have been in the zone and been further back, and just like been wheeled slightly so they're still doing their job, because they didn't move more than 5. So there's no reason for me not to have just reformed them so that they're facing more that way, because clearly I'm planning on creating an L trap, so that when those Incarnate Sentinels charge into these initiates, which they are definitely going to do, I can countercharge with my own initiates. He's wheeling there. It really doesn't matter. He can't get into my front, but he's going to be in my front. So this is one of those times where he's wheeling so that, which is correct, so that if I charge him, it's worse for me. And I think the biggest thing is it might actually force me to have 2 stands in the water. So it's the correct play, but I'm not going to charge those Incarnate Sentinels. I'm just, unless he just like doesn't activate them, I'm completely fine with them charging into initiates. So yeah, I go with a Tempered Sorcerer. The only thing I can do is shoot Force-Grown Drones with it, and I'm like, well, I guess I shoot Force-Grown Drones with it. So it does 3 damage. It's not relevant. They're going to heal it. The Biomancer, and they have regen 4, so it really wasn't even worth rolling, but sometimes you'll roll like 5 or 6 hits, and they'll take barely more, and like you'll get 1 or 2 damage out there. And you should always do it, because you never know when something's going to be 1 wound from shattering, right? Or 1 wound from breaking. And those differences, like, it doesn't make up every game, but it matters. It's always important to gain every incremental advantage you can. So Siegebreaker Behemoth, he's not in range for a reasonable March charge here, and really he doesn't want to do it because those Wardens haven't gone yet, and they will do a ton of damage to him. They are 21 attacks on 4s with Cleave 1. So Siegebreaker doesn't exactly want to take that. So he doesn't want to go for the March charge here. He just stays where he is because he's really just trying to protect the flank of his Force-Grown Drones. I move some Wardens up a little bit, and I'm just sort of measuring things out here. I don't think he's going to charge me with his Force-Growns. And even if he does, I flank him with Flame Berserkers. Like, I don't think that's a good charge for him. He's not in his zone. He's not really like helping his cause at all. I can double march my Fireforged up. They can or my Dragon Slayers up. They can charge him the next turn. Hellbringer can charge him. It's just not where they want to be. So Biomancer goes. There's a lot of discussion here on whether or not he should like unstable to charge my Fireforged. So we talk about this for a while. We eventually remember that he's supposed to heal himself. And then I think he just ends up going with Grand Virulence. He doesn't want to go... He definitely doesn't want to use Unstable. Oh yeah, so we end up having to walk this back. I'm going to fast forward. We talked so much about where the Force-Grown Drones were going that we didn't think about the fact that they weren't actually activating yet because he decided to not Unstable. So we moved them all in, and then like I go with my Wardens and I flank charge him and I do a ton of damage and like all sorts of things happen. And then we go back. We go all the way back in time because none of that happened. And then he goes with his Force-Grown Drones. He does the same thing. Or I try to charge with my Wardens, and I fail here. And this was a mistake. I should not have tried to charge with the Wardens there. I just figured if his Siegebreaker had already gone, and if I could hold him back in that zone, I'm in a pretty good spot, because then I can set up for the Dragon Slayers to just charge him. But see, here's how my Dragon Slayers get caught by my Fireforge, because I made a pretty big mistake. Like, these Wardens should have been my bottom card, and these Dragon Slayers should have been way earlier in the stack. Should have been before both Wardens. Because I really want my Dragon Slayers to get into this block, because I really want my Hold Ray to duel that Biomancer and break his unit. I also lose this zone this turn because I didn't do that. I really, scoring the zones is really the main reason why it was a huge mistake. because he would march charge in, and I'm like, okay, yeah, you're on my Dragon Slayers, but then he's gonna get charged by my Wardens and take all that damage. The first time we rolled it out, he took about 20 wounds from it, and then he's and then like my other Wardens or my Hellbringer or something else can like attack him early in the next turn and hopefully break/shatter him, so I don't take any Aura of Death. Or I can just duel his Biomancer while he's broken with like my Warden champion, and kill him. So there's a lot of options there. I really just made a pretty big mistake. Those Dragon Slayers just needed to be much, much earlier in the stack. He moved up, he got into the zone, and now the scoring's closer. Like, it's a pretty big issue. Like, I really shouldn't have done it. I do win priority here, which I needed to, and then these Wardens get to go into his flank, which is what we wanted. And I was like, well, we could just take the wounds we did last turn, but we rolled again. Sorry, still recovering from a little cold I picked up at LVO. So the damage gets him out of his Warlord's range, so he ends up failing 6 of his resolves. So he ends up taking 23 total wounds from that, which does not break him. It leaves him a whole wound from broken. If he was broken there, all right, is it? How much would have been? Yeah, if we had done one more wound, then the Wardens could duel his Biomancer and kill it, and I think that pretty much ends the game immediately, because that unit's just gone then, and that's really big. But we didn't get there, so such is life. This is another issue that I have. Like, I offset my Dragon Slayers here, so that now they can't go past the Fireforged because the Wardens are in the way, and that wasn't good. Like, there was no reason for my Dragon Slayers not to be directly behind my Fireforged on the exact same line, so that if anything charged the Fireforged, if that thing got cleared off, like the Force-Grown drones, obviously, then my Dragon Slayers would be able to march past them and cover my Fireforged again. But I didn't do that. So he goes in here. He uses Catalytic Rupture when he draws his Biomancer. I take a couple of wounds. But because he wasn't broken, he got to heal, and so then my Ironclad goes in. I believe the Ironclad shatters him here. It certainly breaks him, which will shut off the regen, but I think he does shatter from it, because that's 4 wounds with Brutal 2. He doesn't get a save against that. That is a break, because healing the stand doesn't actually matter. So he fails a couple of those, or one of those, or no, he fails a bunch of those because I was terrifying 2, and then I do 11 hits, which just shatters him. They're cleave 2, so he doesn't get any save and he just dies. His Siegebreaker goes and he just march charges me here, and he wants, we talk about this a little bit, but he wants to be in that zone because there's no reason not to be. So he wants to be lined up with the front end of my Wardens so that he can charge the Wardens. This is a little weird, because it's not set up that way right now, but he could be both in the zone and in a position where his Centaurs can charge the Wardens, and that's his intention. Like, I don't know if it was his intention at the time, but it was what he kind of wanted to do, and sometimes on Tabletop Simulator, you just try to be cool. So because I used my Kerawegh Supremacy this turn, I was able to make this charge, but this is what I was talking about earlier, where I forgot to have these Wardens go after my Kerawegh goes, so that I could cast auto charge on them, or auto inspire on them, and that would have made a very significant difference. It would have likely broken these Avatara, and even had a reasonable chance of killing them. So the Incarnate Sentinels charge in here, but they're in water, so their impacts are on 2s, and they do 3 of them, and I'm on 4s against these, so I still take 1, I still take 2, which is a little sad. I didn't want to fail the resolve, because I should have only taken 1, but whatever. And then he hits pretty good here. He hits with 9, but I save pretty well, so I take 5. And I do pretty well on resolve. So I end up taking 7 there, which is important because I get this I get to keep this stand, which makes me happy. And then my initiates go. So we're just going to go with the ones that he charged. We inspire Clash. Command stand having +2 attacks is really nice, so that we're still swinging back with 11. It's like 6 hits. Fails 2 of them, which is exactly average. He should fail 1 more of these. He failed both of them, so we got a little bit above average. So we're feeling pretty good, and we're happy with what our initiates are doing. He goes Pheromancer here in order to, and he's targeting his Avatara. That's what his top card is. And I believe he thinks about it a bit and then realizes, oh wait, healing's an option. So he just heals them because he was going to do, I think, Tenacious or Dread or something. And that was why it's really bad that we didn't break them, because we really wanted them to not be able to heal. We didn't want them to heal, and we're mad about it. And so now I have Kerawegh up, and there was basically no reason for my Kerawegh not to be before my second Warden unit, and so that was just a mistake. And Kerawegh failed a spell, but it would have gone off on Wardens because they have Devout, so you get +1 successful, +1 cast result on them. I'm pretty sure. I'm double checking. I'm not really a Dweg player. I play everything, but I play some things more. I'm double checking. Yes, they do have Devout. So as Avatara go, they do some clashing into the Wardens. They don't actually do that well. But then I do very poorly on my resolve, failing half of my resolves. So we're still alive with the command stand. Flame Berserkers can't get in, which is frustrating. I was actually kind of expecting... So what I kind of thought was going to happen is that I was going to charge in with Wardens, break the Avatara, do a bunch of damage to them. Then he was going to countercharge with Brutes, and I was going to countercharge with Berserkers. And none of that happened. I probably would have gone with the Warden, like, dueled with the Warden champion if I had broken him with Pursuit of Aghm, but that didn't work out, so oh well. So Tempered Sorcerer puts a Fireball into the Siegebreaker, does a couple wounds. This is just about grinding, like, we're just trying to get whatever damage we can, slowly take the Siegebreaker down. I was actually a little sad the Siegebreaker didn't kill a Warden stand, because I would have been able to wheel my Dragon Slayers. I actually thought about marching them straight sideways and then, like, trying to charge the Siegebreaker by charging, like, straight forward down that Warden line. And it's probably right. I probably should have done it. The Initiates coming into the flank of the Incarnates here. They do a little bit of damage. Incarnates fail all the resolves, though. So that's pretty exciting. They should fail 75% of them. So we were a little bit up there. So the Incarnates probably should have another wound or 2 hanging around, but, it's all good. Kerawegh sorry, I missed this. Kerawegh cast Dismay to break those Incarnate Sentinels. So we're actually 2 wounds from the Incarnate Sentinel shattering here. Another thing, like, I wouldn't have cast Dismay there, because the Kerawegh would have cast Resolve on for Always Inspired on his Wardens. But, you know, those things happen. So he's trying to figure out where the Brute Drone, like what to do with the Brute Drones. And our Brute Drones just like, I don't know, the stand just broke, so we're replacing it with one that we can rotate. So this is probably a little bit of a mistake. Like, these guys maybe should have only gone to like the 2-wide formation, but it's really hard to decide here. Like, we're just having some, for lack of a better term, technical difficulties. So yeah, they're just basically reforming, and then kind of trying to be on the line they want to be. The Fireforged go. What did I do here? Did I march, or do I just take aim and shoot the Siegebreaker? They're just trying to do as much damage to the Siegebreaker as they can. I march up. Yeah, I march up so that my Dragon Slayers can like march to the side and then march up a little bit to try to get a little closer. This is probably a mistake. I didn't think about it, but I have my Kerawegh Supremacy up for +2 inches of charges. I have a banner on those Dragon Slayers. I likely could have marched them sideways and then charged the Siegebreaker to get past my Fireforge, and then just take aim shot the Siegebreaker. I get most of them into effective range here, so I get, you know, some of those shots back. But it's well, I do leave enough space. Like, the intention here is that there's enough space for the Dragon Slayers to get past. So I really still should have done that. I should have done the march sideways with the Dragon Slayers, and then charge class, and then like march charge into the Siegebreaker. Because if I march sideways, that looks like about 9 inches, I'm guessing. There's 4 inches between the zones, so we're looking at about, yeah, it's probably about 9. It's probably about 9 inches. So that's, you know, I'm on a 2 rerollable. Maybe it's a 3 rerollable if it's 10 inches, because I have Kerawegh Supremacy up, but I should have just charged there. I didn't do it because I kind of didn't want these Centaur Avatara to come kill me, but realistically, like, just taking that charge from Centaur is almost certainly better, because I just go first with Dragon Slayers the next turn. I put the attacks I can into the Siegebreaker, and I probably clean up the Centaurs anyway. I take more damage, but if I clear off both of those heavies and I keep my Wardens alive and my Fireforged alive, I'm in a much stronger position here. And my bottom card is a Hold Ray, so that doesn't do anything. We spend a lot of time on the Centaurs. We try to figure out if he can charge here, and he's not really going to be able to, because he hits here, and then he has 2 stands that clip through this to try to even up. And he's like, well, there's no reason to march charge and not get, you know, impacts. So eventually, after a while, he just charges the front of Wardens. Just does the kitty corner charge. And charges the Wardens. Looking back on this, the Wardens actually should be straight, and all this stuff should be straight because of the way, like, because I was on the flank of something, but sometimes stuff happens on TTS and you don't realize it till later. Because the Fireforged were straight, which means the Force-Grown Drones were straight, which means the Warden should have been straight. And this is another mistake here, like, because, like, if these guys had been able to charge after that, they would have just been able to charge and kill the Siegebreaker, right? Like, they should have just been my last card. And this is why they should have either been very early in my stack, so that they could have gotten in like past the Fireforge and not been in a problem area, or they should have been my absolute last card in hopes of countercharging this stuff. Had they been my last card, they would have charged the Centaur Avatara and killed them. And then if they go first the next turn, they kill the Siegebreaker. But I think there's actually a pretty good chance I just ignore the Siegebreaker and just like let it swing on me once and put them very late in the stack and see if I can shoot it down with Fireforged. But, you know, whatever. We make mistakes. We moved this back slightly because we realized stuff was in a weird spot. And the whole plan was to make sure there was a room for these guys. So we just do that on agreements and, you know, stuff. That's things you just do. So we're building decks again. So I really think about this a lot. And looking back, I really feel like I probably should have just gone Wardens first. Because if I just go Wardens first, or Initiates first, and I do these 2 wounds on this flank to kill these Incarnate Sentinels, that is so good for me. But I think I get caught up and I just go Dragon Slayers. I just need to... I need to kill stuff over here. So Siegebreaker comes into the Fireforged. I actually don't remember what my stack was here. It does some damage. I mean, they're Fireforged. It's fine. Oh, that's right. I did Hellbringer first. Or, not Hellbringer. I did Ironclad Drake first. And it was because if I lost priority, this was going to happen. So then my Drake charges into the Centaur Avatara. And, like, I can't be fighting that. I can't be fighting the Siegebreaker. Or I can't be within an inch of the Siegebreaker. Because, yeah, I figured one of these 2 was going to charge into here. And then I was going to kill the thing that charged them and free these guys up. And then the other one was going to charge and finish them off. I thought he was going to go Centaur. I was going to kill the Centaur with the Drake. The Siegebreaker was going to charge in and finish these guys off, and then the Dragon Slayers were going to charge and kill the Siegebreaker. That was my intended plan. So we only do 9 wounds here to the Avatara, and this is really frustrating because like I really wanted them dead, and then they save 4. And they do fail all the resolves, but they only take 10 more wounds. So expected on that is like 3 impacts. So they should take 2 2.2 from the impacts because of the terrifying. And then the clash action I should hit with 10 because of relentless blows. So he should take 6 2/3 of those. And then fail another 2/3 of those. So you should take 6. You should take like 8 or 9. It's actually probably pretty close. He probably took about the right amount of damage. So because the Siegebreaker's here, I can't go into his flank, and because the Siegebreaker's here, I can't go into base with him. So I actually get stranded, which is really weird. And is actually kind of a huge issue for me because it enables his Avatara. So he unbreaks and moves and just like slides over so that it enables his Avatara to charge me. Whereas if he was stuck in that combat, he wouldn't be able to do that. He probably would. He would probably clash and withdraw because that's the correct play there. Which I'm about to do with my Fireforged. So my Fireforged just make some attacks. And the command set actually has 6 attacks, so I have to roll this separately. And it has Flurry because it's near a Hellbringer Drake, or an Ironclad Drake, which I'm going to read wrong this entire game. I really should have made a token, but I've been really busy. So, oh well. And so I think I do like a couple random wounds to the Siegebreaker that's completely irrelevant because the Dragon Slayers are the thing that's going to kill him. And then I And I really shouldn't have done that, actually, because there's a chance I don't die on the withdraw. So I should have just withdrawn, and then maybe I live, and I just double move past my own unit. And then I'm, like, alive with a wound, but I at least still have my character. So that clash withdraw was a mistake. Just withdraw there. The Dragon Slayers will kill the Siegebreaker, right? The Slayers and Holray are going to be just fine charging the Siegebreaker Behemoth. We don't even roll it. Like, it's just so dead. I just got really excited about, you know, my Command Stand and Sorcerer having, like, pretty reasonable attacks because they had Ironclad pressure. Oh yeah, this is my Command Stand from the Warden. It does a couple of wounds. It should have probably done more. But, you know, whatever. So yeah, his Avatar get to charge in here. They stay in the zone. He's in, like, minimum range, so it's 2 saves on 3s. I make the impact. I save the impacts. And this is the reason why I don't love Avatara without Superior Creations, because that's 5 hits. It's just too easy for him to whiff. And he even gave them Dread and +1 attack. So I failed my resolves, or 2 of my 3 resolves, so, like, it wasn't as bad, but still hurts. So the Incarnate Sentinels have already gone this turn, so I go with my with the big unit, because I'm really hoping that I can take out the Incarnate Sentinels here. And we don't get them. You know, it's close. We shouldn't get them, but there's a chance that I might, like, barely scooch by and take them out. And then this one remaining Command Stand would be able to, like, reform and march towards the zone or something. So Onslaught Drones have to charge in. They get hindered because hindering is a cool game mechanic. We once again are unable to rotate them. So because he has to maximize his frontage, he has 2 stands go over the hindering. So we actually look at it. He might have needed to roll, but it was at no more than a 2, so he just rolled a 2. So he has 8 hits out of 16 on 3s, exactly average, which is always exciting. And then I save 6 out of 8 on 3s, which is much better than average. But I do fail one of the resolves. I should have taken, like, a round 4 there. And then he just takes a ton. He takes 5 damage from his Aura of Death. Though that doesn't really matter. These Flame Berserkers were going to kill him anyway. I roll only the Kerawegh. And he just dies. He's fine dying. And then I just clash with no Inspire here. I don't know if I roll this charge or not. Realistically, I think the play here might have just been to charge the Avatara and just eat the Brute Drone charge. But I think I just moved backwards. There's no reason. I don't want to lose my Kerawegh. So I just want to kind of hang back, be in a situation where, you know, I'm where I am right now. If he charges me, then the Dragon Slayers should be able to charge him. Or if I move back here, then he has to march charge, and I'll have to go over the terrain. So if he march charges me, he's not going to be able to get any. He's not going to get impacts. He's not going to get a clash. He's not going to get inspired. And he doesn't really want to just come into my house. So I'm willing to, like, so it just puts him in a weird spot. He is able to march past. We do figure that out. So he could go for this march charge. And I believe he goes for it. We kind of fiddle around here. This is kind of a tough one. If he goes for the march charge into that unit, and I win priority and go with them, right? Like, That's pretty bad for him. Those Flame Berserkers are very scary. And that Kerawegh's within 8 of the Drake, so he's going to be re-rolling. So it's going to be 26 attacks on 4s, 5 of which have Flurry. So he's going to be, he's going to be expecting to take just a ton of damage. So he does this charge. He's like, I'm going to march charge the flank of the Wardens and then get my impacts. And it's like, no, 2 stands are going to go through the terrain. And so he goes back and he's like, oh my god, there's nothing good to do here. This piece of these hindering walls really make a big impact. I think that there is some truth to people not playing with enough terrain and having very different play experiences because of it. Like, if this is a wide open battlefield, then this game plan is very different, right? Then I probably just charge these guys in, and I'm like, well, I have some Aura of Death, and I hope to just kind of keep you at bay, and I hope that I don't die, and that I can just, like, kill these guys with the Drake, and then flank charge or something. And hope, like, a couple rounds of Aura of Death do enough damage. So I go with Kerawegh. I don't really have a good play here. I just try to dismay these Avatara. It needs 4 successes. The math isn't good, guys. We got 2. So that wasn't happening. He goes with his character. It doesn't do anything. I go with my Initiate Command Stand. Making 7 swings. And we do 1 wound. And then we're 50-50. And he lives. He's alive on a wound. We wanted him dead so bad, but we didn't get it. So those Avatar are going to go. They clash without inspiring. We just roll the character first, and that's, I'm pretty sure, enough to get me, because I think I just fail. Oh no, I make 2 of these. So I only take 1, and then it's all the Avatara. And these guys are on 2s, so, like, he only hits with 3. So we have 2 wounds left. We die exactly, but it's pretty close. It's a pretty dangerous clash, no inspire. I think he considers going for the charge on the Initiate flank here, which I don't know if that's a good play or not. It's probably a good play. I think he just moves forward a little bit, though. Yeah, he just moves up so that he's a guaranteed charge on the Initiates the next turn. My Dragon Slayers just charge. They just charge in and kill the Siegebreaker. We don't even roll it. There's no way that the Siegebreaker's remaining, like, 6 wounds are taking all of those Dragon Slayers in the face. So we're building stacks here. We clean up some stuff here. We make these guys the right size. The Initiates actually did have to push the attack to move forward. We score some zones. So I'm up by 3 here. We forgot that every character card that is removed is worth victory points, but you can always add that at the end. So I'm technically 2 further ahead here with the Biomancer being dead. So he wins priority here and goes with Avatara. And he just goes into the Drake. And the Ironclad... So this is just another example. He hits with 4. So the Ironclad takes 3 and then fails, I think, 1 resolve. So yeah, he takes 4 from that. And that's just so bad for them. My Initiates go... I go with the full block. Or do I? Yeah, I don't know. So I kill off the final Incarnate Sentinel. And then he goes with a Pheromancer. I think I went with the single stand. And I probably... Oh, yeah, because the large block was in the water then. So I went with the single stand because I think it's actually more hits on average. So Kerawegh goes... and just fails. I was trying to cast +1 resolve on... or always inspired on the Drake, so that I could go for the Clash and then charge Brute Drones. But that didn't work out for me. So this time he finally gets to avoid terrain, and he charges into my Initiates. And Iron Discipline does not protect your shields, which is sad. So my Initiates take a chunk of damage here. And I fail. I mean, that's 1 1/3 more than average. You should fail 3 out of 10 on 2s. So he just blows up those initiates, and that's very sad for me. So I just have to Inspire Clash with my Drake here. I really wish that my Drake had always inspired, but it's okay. So we do 8 hits, and I'm like, oh god, only 8 hits. But then he fails 7 wounds, and then the Terrifying 2 really comes into play here. He fails 5 more, taking exactly 12. Math on it is he should die, because it should be 10 hits, but it's like a barely should die. So he really can. So he's trying to decide what to do with this Centaur, and he ends up. I think he goes for the reform, charge the Hellbringer to avoid the hindering terrain. We spent a lot of time kind of deciding on it. So he just gets impacts and he just whiffs them. So ultimately, it didn't really matter. My Dragon Slayers just charge up, and he's just like, yeah, okay. The Hold Ray is the Hold Ray by itself will easily kill the 2 remaining wounds on that guy. He's getting no saves, or 3 remaining wounds. He's getting no saves, and I am 7 attacks with Relentless Blows and Flurry because I am next to my Ironclad Drake. So Flame Berserkers just charge the Avatara here. So this is a lot of attacks. It's just 26 swings. Like, it's just so many hits. Hold on. I think I messed up here. There we go. Yeah. So it's 26 attacks on 4s. So we hit with 15. And he takes 5. Takes 6. Because he only rolled 14. And then he fails 2 of those, so he takes 8. So he breaks, and he's down to 1 wound remaining. And then he unbreaks. Which was, I mean, that was good placement for where his character was. And as Brute Drones go, and he goes for this charge. It's 11 inches, but he's given himself +1 march. So he needs a 4, and he fails it. And I think this is the game, right? Like, him failing this charge he's gonna lose. Before he had failed that charge, he was in pretty good shape. So this stand is just wheeling. It's just gonna get in the zone, right? Like, it doesn't care where it's going. So now we're looking at the next turn. So I once again score 2 zones. He scores 1 zone. Those Brute Drones failing that charge is really rough. I would have probably killed the Drake and then hoped that the Ons, I don't know, like, you kind of got to go for it. Like, those Brute Drones, the thing is, I don't think the Brute Drones, so the Brute Drones are in the front here. It's really, really close on whether or not they're in the front or the flank. He goes into the flank, and we kind of go back and we roll it off. Which is one of the things that's dangerous when you move stuff quick. So, I don't know. He might be in my flank. I don't think it really changes anything. I'm ahead on points, so, like, his best case scenario is that I just have these 2 zones, and he has these 2 zones. So he makes his charge this time, and he goes into my flank here, and I'm like, I don't think you were in it. So we go back, and he's like, and we're not sure where he was, and we probably should have checked the tape on this. He could have gone into the flank. Looking at it now, he could have gone into the flank. I don't think it matters that much. All things considered here, because if he goes into the flank, right, like, he gets 4 more brute drone attacks than he gets off of this clash. So we'll go through. This will be all the stuff, and then 4 more brute drone attacks is 3 more hits. So we'll look and see. Like, we can do some math on what that actually ends up meaning. So we're rolling up some attacks here. So I took a total of 2 wounds. I would have taken probably 2 or 3 more wounds, right? So we would have a stand, like, this stand would be dead, and this stand over here would be a little bit more beat up. So as Pheromancer goes, heals the Avatara. That's fine for me. So I would have had, like, yeah, I honestly don't think it really changes anything. So my Flame Berserkers go, because I would have just put all of my attacks into finishing off the Avatara. Well, one stand? Nah, I probably still would have just done the, like, command stand and the other stand in the Avatara, and then the Kerawegh into the brute drones. So really what happens is the brute drones take, like, 6 less attacks. So they take, like, 4 less hits, I guess. So yeah, the brute drones probably don't get attacked. So if they don't have those 3 wounds on them, let's see if it changes the game basically at all. I probably just put everything into them. So the Hellbringer just, like, reform charges the brute drones here. I actually think if they were in the flank, it's better for me, because I charge them and I'm further away from the onslaughts, so that it's harder for the onslaughts to charge me. Although it might actually, I don't remember how it works out. So I get some impacts here. I think I kill a stand. Yeah, so my Hellbringer would be in the other zone. He's ice skating, so, or my Ironclad would be in the other zone. Yeah, I mean, I would be in the flank, and, like, I'd be basically where I'd be slightly down, and I'd be touching the back of the zone. But then he also would be getting charged by this command stand, and it would have attacks. So I think he actually would end up in basically the same place. I really don't think getting that flank charge wrong makes a difference. I don't know. I don't like it when we, like, play stuff wrong. So I'm thinking about it probably too much. He dies to the Aura of Death on the Flame Berserkers. I have Memory of Breath on the Kerawegh, so it's Aura of Death 7, 1 from the Kerawegh and 6 from the Flame Berserker stands. Oh yeah, so his Lineage Highborne goes and does some damage, because the Avatara had not yet gone. But his Lineage Highborne had been activated, so currently it says that they have to have both done a thing. And I don't know if that's the intent on it. We'll figure it out. Because there's an inclusive Aura clause. So unless both the regiment and the character have activated, you get to die fighting. I know that there's an email out there from the lead designer, Leo, about, like, if the character clashed with the unit, then that is them acting. So I think it basically only cares if the unit's gone. But the unit hadn't gone yet, so he gets to die fighting, and he killed a stand. I duel his Pheromancer, or I try to duel his Pheromancer with my Kerawegh. And I think he just breaks for that. So then we go to turn 8, and this one's like mostly over. Like the failed charge really didn't matter, so we kind of talk about it a bunch. If you were in the flank, I think these brute drones are actually in a worse place because they would have gotten charged by the initiate. And then we're kind of measuring stuff out here. So I go with my Drake first, and I just clash no Inspire, and then go for the charge. And then I don't get any impacts. But then he goes and he just kills me. But then I get to countercharge with my Flame Berserkers and kill him. So we just kind of we're speeding through the last couple turns here. The failed charge on the Brute Drones the turn prior that would have gone into the Flame Berserkers really sealed the deal here. This was a pretty close game, and then that happened, and it's pretty hard to come back from. So like we go back here, and this failed charge just really hurt. Because if they can charge in and charge clash, they're not going to get any impacts, and they're going to have 7 attacks on 2s rerolling, which is about 4 hits, and another like 2 hits from the Pheromancer. So it doesn't really change a ton, but like it does a little bit of damage, and then he's kind of in the same position. But I mean, it matters, right? Like then I have to go with like Flame Berserkers first to finish off these guys. I'd probably still go with Hellbringer first, or with Ironclad first, and then I just like charge him in the flank. But he gets a whole round of attacks into these, so then the Dragon Slayers might actually just have to be more active. I'm ahead on points. I'm going to win the game either way, because even if he kills over here, and then I just run my Drake over here, and my Dragon Slayers and Drake are just like, we're in these zones, then there's not really anything you can do. Because there's nothing left on his board that can deal with the Dragon Slayers. So it's a much closer game if he makes that charge, but the fact that I was ahead on points and had 2 zones just really meant that there was no good out for him from there. So the end of the game, 61-23, and then like these guys charge in and they flank charge, and we're gonna kill these Onslaught Drones. So we managed to table, but the Onslaught Drones definitely murder the Drake. They do some very, very good work. And 12 hits into a defense 3 thing just really, really adds up. Again, thanks all for watching. I'm gonna try and do a video at some point in the upcoming week where I talk about the Pursuit of Aghm 2,000 point bundle from Parabellum, and 1, why I built it the way I did, and 2, how I would expand upon it, or what I would buy to try to turn it into like a more competitive list, just to really just try to turn it up into a tournament list. I would feel confident playing in a lot of events with this list, that unless I'm playing against a very, very finely tuned list against a very, very good opponent, I would feel very confident playing it. If I'm playing in somebody who's in equal skill level and playing with normal lists, just like most of the stuff you see, I would be very happy playing with this out of the box as it is, the way I built it here today. And if I were to take something like this to Adepticon, I would expect to lose to, like Carl or Bryan or Jeff like playing their like high end competitive lists. But I feel like after I had a loss or two, I'd feel pretty confident going 4-2 or 5-1 with a list like this. It's a very good box. Nothing in it is bad. Like I wasn't able to fit the Infernal Automata in here because I ran out of points. I wanted some upgrades. But it's really, I'm pretty happy with it. It's pretty good. The Spires box is also very good. I think, generally speaking, I wouldn't want to run the Siegebreaker in it because I'd rather have my Lineage Highborne in a larger unit of Incarnate Sentinels, so I would add more Incarnate Sentinels with the points that I get from cutting the Siegebreaker, just so that I could run Lineage Highborne with Cascading Degeneration in Incarnate Sentinels. That's a very, very good unit. The Lineage Highborne does it really well. You'd be able to take Attracting Pheromones to give him flank, so you'd be able to bring in both your Centaur and your Incarnates. And then I would probably, with the Force-Grown Drone block, instead of running Aura of Death there, I would put Aura of Death on the Sentinels, and then I would put Degenerative Aura on the Force-Grown Drones. So I would play the box very, very similarly to the way Bryan did here today. I would just honestly buy an extra box of Incarnate Sentinels and put Cascading Degeneration on my Lineage Highborne. I'd cut the Siegebreaker or the Centaurs, whichever one you like more. Right now, I feel like Centaurs are slightly better, but I like Siegebreaker. I think he needs a couple more attacks, but it's good to have an extra armor buster. It's a good piece for Spires. Just 8 attacks is not a lot of attacks. So we'll see how he goes. But yeah, that was where I would go with the Spires list. If I were going to add to it, I would cut the Siegebreaker and pick up a box of Incarnate Sentinels, and otherwise play the list very basically the same as Bryan did here. I would just grab Degenerative Aura on the Biomancer and put Cascading on the Lineage Highborne, and swap out the Siegebreaker to pay for those upgrades and get 2 more stands of Incarnate Sentinels to run 5 plus the character. With this box, I really like Wardens. I think Wardens are very, very good. I would bring a 3rd unit of them, and I don't think I would keep the Fireforged. I think I would probably I'd honestly probably just pick up another box of Flame Berserkers and another box of Wardens, and I would add some stands to the Flame Berserker box and add in that third Warden's regiment instead of bringing the Sorcerer and the Fireforged, and I'd be really, really happy with this box. I mean, I would actually buy a Warriors box and run a unit of Exemplar Warriors instead of one of the MSU Initiate blocks, so that I had 1 unit of Initiates to just be a little small, like, tar pit to tank that charge, and then Warriors with Exemplar are making, 13, 15, 17 attacks. And they're Resolve 3, so you lose a defense, but they're the same price, and they're pretty scary. So I would do that to unlock my extra mainstay for the Hold Raise Warband. But I still like the Dragon Slayer unit, and I still like the Ironclad Drake a lot. So another option would be, if you were interested, picking up a 2nd Ironclad Drake is really good for this army, and because it gives you more space on the board where your command stands, which are already getting +2 attacks, are getting flurry from the Ironclad Drakes. So I could see running running Thanes and double Ironclad. One of them is going to come in on 4 most games, and I don't really love that. I think there's a lot of value in having your heavies come on more consistently, but it works okay. It works okay in this case just because it's pretty fast, and you do actually kind of want one to come in a little later so that you can position it exactly where you want for the flurry aura for your command stands. So it's one of those weird cases where I think you could actually do something pretty interesting with it. But yeah, hopefully later this week I'll actually spend some time and do another video where I talk specifically about this list, where it started, and what I would change, and like how to do that cheaply. My goal is how to turn these boxes into a highly competitive army for less than like an extra $150, because it's nice to be able to get into the game cheap, and I think that these are a great deal. Like, I'm not being too much of a corporate shill. I know the barrier to entry is real, and honestly, one of my favorite things to watch on YouTube is professional golfers playing with like Costco sets. So I just thought this would be a really fun like series to do. We will be going through and playing with all of these boxes and or all of these starter bundles and playing some games on the channel with them to give people a really good idea of a starting point on how to use them. And if you want to get into the game, send your friends to the channel and have them watch these games. Next week, I believe we're going to do Old Dominion versus Wadroon, but I think City States is the only other one that has a box right now. Maybe Nords. I gotta double check the bundles and see what's available, but we'll be doing more of these. Thanks again for watching. If you want to see more, like and subscribe and hit the bell icon. Thanks. Bye.